Run, Laikipia County, was torched Tuesday afternoon. Heavy smoke engulfed the building structures at the learning facility that has already been deserted as parents pulled off their children from the school due to the deteriorating insecurity in the area. The armed bandits daring to even engage security forces in a shootout as they escaped to a nearby valley.
Wanarusharusha marisasi wakitoroka. Kama hawa ile nia kupiga risasi ilikuwa ni kwamba walikuwa wanakava ng'ombe, zamani walikuwa na mifugo hapa. So walikuwa nasukuma mifugo, alafu wale wengine wanabaki nyuma, wanapiga marisasi.
Journalists covering the story and local leaders who were assessing the situation were caught up in the shootout. The attack happened as Rift Valley Regional Coordinator George Natembeya launched a security operation about 4 kilometers away in Olmoran town.
Wameua watu 7. Kwa watu 7 kuna maafisa wa usalama ndani karibu 3 ambao pia wameuawa. Kwa hivyo hapa hata maafisa wakikuja hapa hawaji kwamba wanakuja kudeal na civilian population ambao wanatii sheria. Wanakuja na kudeal na criminals ambao wako tayari kupigana na serikali.
Natembeya noted while security forces were using AK-47 and G3 rifles, the bandits were using heavy and sophisticated firearms. Leaders hailing from the region have called on the government to take speedy action and address the troubling insecurity in the area.
Ng'ombe ambayo iko ndani kama iko na mwenyewe akuje atupe proof ya kwamba ng'ombe ni zake, lakini kabla hiyo wananchi wa Laikipia waende wazikague kwa macho. Hakuna mtu ajui ng'ombe yake na mbuzi yake. Tutaenda tutoe ng'ombe zetu na mbuzi zetu ndani ya hizi zinaambiwa ni za mabwenyenye.
Rais Uhuru, take action. Your citizens are dying. Take action.
The NPR that we need in Laikipia, the numbers that we are told have been given guns are not enough. We need more than 1,000 NPRs.
Reporting for Prime Edition, I'm Jackie Wambiru.
And we hope security and peace will be restored in Olmoran. Deputy President William Ruto now claims the clamor for constitutional reforms derailed the development agenda in the second term of the Jubilee government. Ruto says that much time was lost as the political elite concentrated on changing the constitution, promising to continue the momentum if given a chance to be the next president. Safina Cheng Oma reports.
Deputy President William Ruto continued with his series of meetings with delegations from different regions at his official residence in Karen. During his Tuesday meeting with a section of grassroots leaders from Murang'a County, Ruto claimed that the clamor for constitutional reforms derailed the development agenda in the second term of the Uhuru administration.
Tayari tumepoteza miaka 4 hatujafanya mpango ya Big 4 ya kuzalisha nafasi ya kazi kwa vijana, ya kuwashughulikia wakulima wapate soko na cooperatives zao sisimame. Hatujafanya ile universal health coverage. Tafadhali tusiendelee kupoteza muda wetu na majibizano ambayo haina maana.
Ruto vowing to catch up on lost time by marshalling a formidable political force that will help him implement his bottom-up economic model.
Tuko na agenda ya uchumi ya kukabiliana na umaskini na kuhakikisha ya kwamba wale hawana kazi wapate kazi. Wale biashara yao ni ndogo, tuwasaidie tukuze biashara zao.
Legislators from Mount Kenya region who attended the meeting vowed to back him in his 2022 presidential bid.
Na Kenya hakuna mtu atalazimishwa kufanya vile hataki. Na katika hii century ya 21st century hakuna mtu ya kubebewa akili hata moja. Kila mtu wako na akili zake.
Sisi watu wa Murang'a, let us support chama cha UDA. Hawa watu wengine ambao saizi wanakuja kuitisha viti, mnaona mtu ambaye yuko kwa UDA.
Pia tukaangalia ni kiongozi mgani kati ya wale wote wanaotafuta urais anaweza kukubalika across the entire nation and across generations.
Sisi sauti yetu tumeamua, alama yetu ni wheelbarrow, na presidential candidate wetu, wapende wasipende, ni William Samoei Ruto.
For Prime Edition, I'm Safin Aching Oma.
Meanwhile, the National Cohesion and Integration is tonight warning that it will institute legal action against persons who disrupt political meetings. NCIC, in collaboration with the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, say that they are investigating several instances of hate speech in political gatherings, and those culpable will not be spared. Jacob Curia puts that story in perspective for us.
The NCIC appeared to react to last Sunday's scenes in Bireri, Kieni constituency, when Deputy President William Ruto's motorcade was blocked by rowdy youth. But that was not the only incident. On the 27th of January this year, supporters of ODM leader Raila Odinga clashed with rowdy youth who wanted to block him from addressing his supporters in Gilrai. In October last year, violent scenes characterized Deputy President William Ruto's tour in Keno, Murang'a County. The NCIC warning that it will prosecute those planning mayhem in political events. NCIC also claims that it is investigating those propagating hate speech in political podiums. In the meantime, the Interfaith Council on COVID-19 is raising alarm over the political gatherings being organized by the political class using the cover of churches. Led by its chairperson, Archbishop Anthony Muheria, the council has called on politicians to exercise responsibility and desist from using places of worship for political rallies.
That is possible to carry on campaigns or popularization through other means other than putting our people at risk. We are calling to your conscience and your heart that you please plead, you please take up the life of our people seriously.
Tuwe na kujari, korona inaongezeka sana wakati umati mwingi wa watu unakuja kusongomana katika makanisa. Wacha siasa ipigwe lakini isipigiwe kwenye nyumba ya Bwana.
John Jacob Curia, Prime Edition.
Away from politics, Kenya has today received an assortment of equipment from Japan and the United Postal Services to enhance administration of COVID-19 vaccines. Japan donated through UNICEF 12 cold chain freezers worth 210 million shillings from a capacity to store 3 million doses. The United Postal Services donated 15 soft boxes for transporting the vaccines.
The 12 ultra-cold chain freezers donated by the government of Japan and soft boxes from the United Postal Services will enhance the deployment of the Pfizer vaccine. Receiving the donations, Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe said 3 of the freezers will be placed at the central vaccine store in Kitengela, while the rest will be distributed to the 9 regional stores except Garissa, which requires a specialized deep freezer suitable for the northeastern region.
This procurement is a very timely and crucial step in the fight against the pandemic in Kenya, as the various vaccines which require specialized storage are now being introduced in the country.
The quality and success of our vaccination program depends on the integrity of our cold chain. Whereas we appreciate the support we are getting from our friends, therefore, the Ministry of Health we will be expanding and strengthening our cold chain facility at a cost of an additional 900 million with World Bank support.
Kagwe further said to mitigate the COVID-19 mortality among the elderly, the age bracket for vaccination has been revised to 50 years thanks to the increased vaccine supply.
In addition, and in line with the deployment plan, I also direct the immediate inclusion of all persons above 18 years old with underlying medical conditions or disabilities.
National COVID-19 Vaccines Task Force Chair Dr. Willis Ahwali dismissed fears that vaccines being administered had expired, saying they had a shelf life of 6 months.
When you put the logistics in place, the best that you can get any vaccine is actually 4 to 5 months before their shelf life. That is why we have put more emphasis on efficiency of our system to ensure there's no single expiry, which we've not had since we started vaccinating.
No vaccines are going to expire in our country. We have actually refused to be given vaccines which have a lead time, such a short lead time, that we feel that we cannot use them. And therefore we stand the possibility of people accusing us of inefficiency.
Japan's ambassador to Kenya, Mr. Hori Roichi, stated his government's commitment to assist Kenya attain the target of vaccinating 10 million people by the end of the year. Yusuf Far reporting for Prime Edition.
Well, now let's get an update on the COVID-19 status. Kenya has recorded 704 new COVID-19 cases from a sample size of 6,776 tested over the last 24 hours. The new figures represent a positivity rate of 10.4%. In the latest statistics released by the Ministry of Health, 5 more deaths were recorded, all of them from the late audits conducted in September. The death toll now stands at 4,800. Globally, over 221 million cases have been reported, with the number of fatalities standing at slightly over 4.5 million, as per data from Johns Hopkins University. Meanwhile, over 2.8 million COVID-19 vaccines have so far been administered nationwide. Of these, first doses are 2.08 million, while second doses are 814,375. Now, here's the thing. Most Kenyans are relying on friends and relatives to fund COVID-19 treatment. This is according to a new survey by Infotrack that says that only 1 in 5 Kenyans are self-financing medical costs related to COVID-19, underscoring the need for NHIF to take up the cost of medication. Purity Museo reports.
Infotrack report on health systems that was conducted between the end of 2020 and mid-2021, 2 in 5 people who have contracted COVID-19 have sought help from friends and relatives to pay the cost of medication. According to the report, COVID-19 management costs in hospitals range from 21,361 per day for patients with mild symptoms, 24,705 for patients with severe disease, and 51,684 for critical COVID-19 patients in ICU.
For patients, COVID-19 management costs in hospital they range from slightly over 21,000 shillings. For asymptomatic patients, slightly over 21,000 shillings per day for patients with mild symptoms, and 24,000 for patients with severe disease, and 51,000, slightly over 51,000 for critical COVID patients in ICU.
Kenyans, according to the report, say the pandemic has greatly affected the cost of healthcare, making it too expensive and beyond reach of many.
The question of funding the cost of healthcare in this country. Already we do know that even before COVID, many of us, most of us, are just a disaster away from complete, financial ruin. If somebody close to you, God forbid, gets ill, then it is likely that the cost of treatment, the cost of medication will leave you destitute.
The survey further indicates that even with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, the public health disease burden is very much on pre-existing and chronic health conditions, with 26% of treatment sought, followed by malaria at 19% and respiratory illnesses at 19%. According to the report, 71% of Kenyans visited public health facilities in search of medical attention between the end of 2020 and mid-2021.
So I guess what this tells us is that we should be pushing the vaccine agenda very, 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 very hard to ensure that we do achieve some level of herd immunity, and the Kenyans are then able to avoid these astronomical costs that we see here.
Elsewhere, Kiambu Majority Leader Gideon Gachagua says Kenyans should not be branded apathetical from shying away from COVID-19 vaccines. Speaking in Deya Health Center when he was launching the vaccination Mashinani process, Gachagua urged locals to heed the vaccine call for their own safety.
And also we have also continuously educated our people on the importance of receiving this vaccination. And the more we educate them, the more we give them information, they are responding positively. So now we do not have any apathy.
Beatrice Gatonyengetich, Prime Edition.
And in West Pokot County, the County Assembly Speaker Catherine Mukenyang has been impeached by members of the West Pokot County Assembly. 25 members of County Assembly voted in support of the impeachment motion, while 7 members voted against it. Mukenyang was accused of 4 grounds, among them abuse of office and gross violation of public finance. She was further accused of embarking on an early campaign using County Assembly vehicles and resources.
Jambo lingine ni wa jambo ambalo MCS wameonelea kwa mambo mengi, kutumikia ofisi vibaya, kufanya mambo ambayo si yake, kuhujumu kazi ya mawakilishi, na nafikiri kwa yale yote tuliyatoa, we were condemned to remove her from office by impeachment.
Now, the African Caribbean Community Summit has resolved to develop collaborations in the areas of health, blue economy, as well as climate change to harness the tremendous potential in these areas into a powerful socio-economic, cultural, and political force. Speaking during the virtual meeting, President Uhuru Kenyatta said it is important for member states to come together and incorporate climate action into our national policies, as well as long-term development plans, and adapt global best practices to mitigate and adapt to the threats posed by climate change.
The first ever African Caribbean Community Summit, which was chaired by President Uhuru Kenyatta, brought together heads of state and government of the African Union and the Caribbean community member states. It aims to promote closer collaboration between Africa diaspora, people of African descent, and the Caribbean and Pacific region and its institutions.
Kenya is indeed grateful and feels honored to host this inaugural summit of what I believe is the first of many such summits to follow in the future in our efforts to strengthen the cords of unity of the African peoples across the world.
In his speech, President Kenyatta cited blue economy, climate change and health as key areas of collaboration and mutual prosperity.
Both Africa and the Caribbean regions are blessed with enormous resources in the blue economy. The African continent has 38 coastal states and island states and a coastline of well over 47,000 kilometers. And for all members of states of CARICOM, they enjoy access to approximately 1 million square miles of the Caribbean Sea. This presents enormous opportunities to strengthen and foster innovative partnerships across the two regions.
President Kenyatta said climate change remains an exponential threat to the region owing to extreme swings in temperature and rainfall patterns. President Kenyatta further said COVID-19 was a wake-up call, especially for the developing world, to jolt them to build their own manufacturing capacity for vaccines and critical medical supplies. Caroline Kamau for Prime Edition.
Well, from that virtual meeting, we come right back to the studio here in Nairobi, Kenya, for our first break.
For our first break, absolutely. And in studio, we have Dr. Willie Sakwale, the chairperson of the Kenya Vaccines Task Force here in Kenya. And what concerns do you have in regard to deployment of the vaccines in the country? He is here, and you can send in your questions at KBC Channel 1 News, at Purity_Museo, at Tom Mboya 24. The hashtag is Prime Edition. Stay with us.
To get control your thinking as your skiza tune, dial *811 *961#.
Did you know that you have complete control over everything that surrounds you? Yes, fully control over all that comes out of the seas, the earth, and the universe. That control is your thinking. Good thoughts bear good fruits, but bad thoughts will always bear bad fruits. Control your thinking.
To get control your thinking as your skiza tune, dial *811 *961#. *811 *961#.
Lakini babako anajua, ama akijua itakuwa.
Wewe ndiye mamake Maya. Wewe ndiye mwenzangu hapa ndani ya nyumba. Wewe ndiye jicho langu. Leo amuuliza Pili Maya ameenda wapi?
We ni zuzu au anifanyia madharau ama we ni mzuka tu kama hiyo sura yako?
Mume wangu sijamuona kutoka jana na aliniambia alikuwa na Kate. Wakili yuko wapi?
Now time for our live interview, and in studio we have Dr. Willis Akwale, the chair of the COVID-19 Vaccines Task Force here in Kenya, as we engage him on matters COVID-19 vaccines deployment. Thank you so much, sir, for making time for us.
Thank you very much, Purity. My pleasure to be on prime time.
And when we received our first consignment of the vaccines sometime in March, the AstraZeneca vaccine, there were concerns. The CS actually said some of the reasons why we could not get other types of vaccines, especially Pfizer, was the issue to do with storage. Maybe you can begin by addressing that. Do we have, as a country, the capacity to store any type of a vaccine that we may receive any time from now?
Yeah, so thank you very much. The very first deployment plan, which we have now since revised, looked at the stages towards an effective deployment of COVID-19 vaccine. And we had what we called the introduction period, which was that period between March and June this year, recognizing that we needed to deploy first vaccines that are easy to store, that are easy to be administered. We recognized that there are vaccines like the Pfizer and Moderna that required a little bit of more logistical infrastructure to be put in place. So, and we are happy that, yes, the first phase was relatively smooth. The biggest challenge we had was just the supply. But from July, we began our second phase. And in this one, we've been enhancing the cold chain. You saw today in your news, we've now got deep freezers, which can store the Pfizer. Last week, we've actually deployed Moderna, which requires also freezing, but much better temperatures, higher temperatures of -20. And we are expecting the first 1 million doses of Pfizer next week, and we'll be good to go.
We'll be good to go. Now, would you confirm that as a country now we have the right infrastructure to store the 6 kinds of vaccines approved by the World Health Organization?
Yes, we are now good. We can now administer all the 6. Actually, in Kenya, we'll be deploying 5. AstraZeneca, Moderna has followed, Johnson has just followed, and then Pfizer next week. And later in this month of September, we expect Sinopharm, also which has been approved by WHO. All these are possible. However, let me say that it's important to note that we are also still undertaking vaccination for children. We cannot overload the system and leave children unvaccinated. That is not going to be moral. I know COVID is scaring adults in particular, it's killing us, but we are not going to go into a situation where we use all the space that is available just to vaccinate only on COVID. And that is why today you had the cabinet saying very specific measures that will ensure we are scaling up COVID-19 vaccination, but not interfering with the vaccination of children.
All right. And why the 5? Why not the 6 vaccines that have been approved by the World Health Organization?
We could. So what basically happens is that within the COVAX mechanism, they usually give us a quarterly forecast and tell us we have this number of this vaccine, this. So in Kenya, you've been allocated this type and this type. Are you able to get, how many quantities are you able to bring? And we do then request for them. Sinovac at the time, it may not have been, one of the things about Sinovac is that it's very close also to Sinopharm, but our healthcare workers have already been trained on Sinopharm, and we're expecting an initial donation. So we will then be able to easily deploy it. But in future, when there are enough doses, even of Sinovac, we can bring. And obviously, as then our program goes on, we will have to really say which are the most suitable, which ones are easy to administer, which ones go where. And our revised deployment plan is now really asking counties to identify which vaccines best suits which facility.
And when you began receiving donations of the AstraZeneca doses, there was a time there were claims that Kenya received some doses that had expired. Was it anything to do with expiry, or that African country had lacked probably storage capacity?
At no time has Kenya ever received expired vaccines. First and foremost, nobody would even export expired vaccines. It is important to note that the whole issue of vaccines is tightly controlled by the Global Alliance on Vaccines and Immunization, Gavi, and the World Health Organization that ensures the quality of these vaccines. Vaccines are very special. In fact, their quality is monitored right from the manufacturing, and it is monitored all the way through transportation. There are special monitors that even monitor how the vaccines are moving. If you work with some of our staff, and I'll welcome you when you come to Afya House, you will get people with phones that can tell you which truck and the temperature that these vaccines are moving. And if there's anything, there'll always be an alert. So let me say it has never been. The issue of near expiry is that COVID-19 vaccines have a shelf life of 6 months. So from production to the time you administer, there's a lot of logistics in terms of packing and everything. So even the very best vaccines will be 4 to 5 months. However, remember, in the initial stages, there was the rich countries that had booked the vaccines. They had booked the supply chain. So when they vaccinated their populations and started releasing, they were giving us. The good thing in Kenya is that we had built capacity that even if we got vaccines that were like a month or 6 weeks, we are able to utilize them before they expire.
And how about the storage at the counties? Because right now we are seeing with the mass vaccination exercise or campaign by the ministry, we are seeing counties storing vaccines. Do they have the capacity to do that?
You have asked a very
health facilities in particular.
Yes,
yeah.
You have asked a good question and even qualified much better.
Yes.
The most important point of vaccination is the vaccination post. That is the refrigerator that is down there in that rural health facility. How many types of vaccine can it carry? Vaccines are not just packed like food in a refrigerator. There are specific places where you place which vaccine. There is the temperatures. They are graded. They have labels. They'll be colored and they'll be told put this here. That is where we still have a constraint, because those fridges and supply and cold chain were meant for childhood vaccination. We are riding on that, and that is what we are overloading. And that is why in today's speech, the Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe said we will go for 1,177 facilities to expand that. Basically meaning having to buy new refrigerators there. But we're also recognizing there is something called turnaround time. You see, at the moment, counties have to go to the regional stores. So a county like Turkana has to go to Eldoret to get, occasionally we airlift vaccines there. So what we want to do, we are looking at strategic counties, 25 of them, to put up what we call walk-in cold rooms, which means they can have the capacity to store, and therefore counties can quickly be able to go and get vaccines without having to waste a lot of time to pick them. Yes.
And while on that challenge, do we have counties that are yet to begin this, drive due to the storage, or what you're explaining, the challenges that may come with the storage?
No, at the moment, given the capacity we have, and given the arrangements that have been made, and you will see that all counties have started vaccinating with AstraZeneca. All counties can now vaccinate with Moderna. It is only Pfizer that will require very special attention, but we are trying to get our way out of it. Number one, of course, the storage is at -70. Now, the freezers that came today, they are going to those regional stores. But once we've removed the Pfizer vaccine, it is administered at 2 to 8 degrees. However, you cannot transport Pfizer for more than 12 hours. So you have to calculate the distance from the regional store to the facility you go. If it is more than 12 hours, you will not immunize with Pfizer. Secondly, the vaccine, Pfizer, once it is thawed, meaning it is no longer frozen, it has to be used within 28 days. So we will not place those vaccines in places that don't have a lot of people presenting for vaccination.
Right. So let's address the issue of efficacy, because we've been seeing figures, you know, Pfizer 95%, 80%, and some people will say, I will wait for this jab because it's more, you know, effective as compared to the other, and you're on record saying any vaccine, you know, can prevent you from getting the disease. Maybe you can clarify this?
I will start by saying there is no superior vaccine unqualified. There are COVID-19 vaccine, unqualified. And there are two words I really want to try and explain as simple as I can: efficacy and effectiveness. So during clinical trials, the vaccines, you have what you call endpoints. What do you want to achieve? So there are two endpoints that clinical trials looked at. Prevention of severe disease, hospitalization and death was one endpoint. The other one was prevention of transmission, mild to moderate transmission. Now, the prevention of severe disease, all the vaccines were 100%. None was better than the other. When it comes to prevention of transmission, that's where you start hearing one is 92%, one is 67%, one is 80%. That is prevention of mild moderate disease. Now that parameter, however, can have very many confounding factors. It may depend on which time it was done, where was it done. So like in Kenya, you know, last year, let's say December, January, there was very little of COVID here. And if somebody assessed a vaccine, they would say it's my vaccine that really reduced that. But it was just the natural cycle of the disease. But if you did it in March when we had the third wave here, it may not have reduced as many. Now, there's one thing I would want to tell people, and they can Google, even Professor Google will tell you, there has been no study that compared vaccine A, B, and C to say which one is better. It's only that they have been done at different times. Remember, these vaccines were developed within a year, and therefore nobody has that luxury to have done that. Prevention of disease, severe disease, is the most important parameter that we don't lose life.
And with the 5 expected types of vaccines in the country, will Kenyans have a choice, you know, a chance to make the decision on what jab they would want, or that decision will lie on the ministry?
Let me, and I've used this phrase a little bit now, that in terms of scarcity, there's no cherry picking. And even if you go to the developed countries, when they also didn't have enough vaccine, the important thing is that the vaccine that is nearest to you, the vaccine that is in your arm, is the best vaccine. Take it. You may want to be saying, I'm waiting until I get this, and the next thing you are in an ICU, and you regret why you never got a vaccine. Remember, we are now getting data even from some of the private hospitals that most of the people who are admitted are the unvaccinated. The same thing in the US. So we need people to get this vaccine. For us, our guidance and our operating principle is this. We are going to allocate a vaccine to a facility. Small facilities will have only one type of vaccine. Big facilities may have 2 or 3 types, but they must be administered from totally different parts of the facility. In fact, today I was reading some reports from other countries. You know, the conditions for administering Moderna are different from Pfizer, and you don't want to have them at the same place.
Right.
So for you, once you go to the change system, and once you register, and once you present yourself, the vaccine in that facility that is available is the vaccine you must accept.
And the Minister of Health is yet to approve the mix and match, you know, mix and matching vaccines, because people are asking, if I got AstraZeneca as a first dose, can I get Johnson & Johnson, you know, or Pfizer?
At the moment, that is not a policy. It's not a recommendation by the Minister of Health. We know that there have been some studies that have shown that mixing could have better immunogenicity, but the data remains limited, it's not adequate. Even the World Health Organization has pronounced itself and said this data is not yet adequate. However, they had said in case you really have shortage of vaccines, you could consider. Now here in Kenya, the way we are now moving, you will see we are reserving. We got Moderna, we now got the second dose. When we get Pfizer, we'll reserve a second dose. AstraZeneca, we are going to get adequate doses. In fact, currently, it's going to be available everywhere. So you just need to present yourself and get a second shot.
Okay.
When all of this data is available, analyzed, and expert opinion is given, then we'll pronounce ourselves as to how we go about it.
And as we speak, maybe how do you intend to roll out these vaccines? Because when we started, there was a delay, especially those who had received the first jab of AstraZeneca in March. We experienced a delay for reasons that were explained from India. But right now, do you assure Kenyans, especially who will be receiving their first doses from the new jabs, Moderna and Pfizer, that they will get their second doses on time?
Absolutely. This is something we have seriously considered as we made our development plan, and we are referring to it as reserving the second dose. So what we are doing is that, like Moderna, we got 800,000 doses, we release them. The ones we got yesterday, we are going to release them a week before people start getting the second dose. So the facility where you went, we will give them, allocate them an equivalent when the time for the second dose comes. Same with Pfizer. With AstraZeneca, I can assure Kenyans that that supply is now increasing, and it will always be available now to be given at 8 weeks. Remember, it can be given 8 to 12 weeks. So by the time of 8 weeks, our chanjo system and other methods will be used to remind you to go for the second. So one of the things is that our chanjo system will send you alerts 48 hours to the time you're supposed to get your second dose. We are telling Kenyans they must be fully vaccinated, not to get only one dose and start hoping to change to another vaccine.
Yeah, and what's your target in regard to rolling out? How many people do you, target to vaccinate by what time, and what's the uptake? Are Kenyans turning up in large numbers as you expected?
Oh, in fact, they are turning up in extremely large numbers. People turning up, the cabinet secretary said, it's now not the problem. The problem is to get the right, all the quantities at the right time. Actually, by morning, I wake up and I get photos, people telling me at 6 a.m. we had 300 people, but we have been given 50 vials. We want to change that. Our aim, and it is a target set by His Excellency the President, is to have 10 million people vaccinated by the end of this year.
And how many have you vaccinated?
Right now we are at the 3 million mark.
All right.
And we have 5 million doses. So we believe by September we'll have hit the 5 million mark. And therefore October, November and December, with the increased supply, that is a target we are going to meet. Our principle is vaccinate as many people and as quickly as possible, because we want the economy to open up.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Willie Sakwale, for making time for us. Thank you once again for coming. We appreciate.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's it for our tonight's interview. Thank you for staying with us. We still have more news coming up shortly. Stay with Prime Edition.
Within the last 3 years since the National Liberation Council took charge of the government of Ghana, relations between our two countries considerably improved. I must say that this happy state of affairs has been largely due to the fatherly understanding of His Excellency President Jomo Kenyatta. We in Ghana feel that the distance separating us should not prevent us from taking concrete steps to strengthen our cooperation. We can go further to institute regular student exchange program. It may also be possible for Ghanaian students to take advantage of your excellent training facilities in agriculture and veterinary science. Kenya has acquired a tremendous experience in game and wildlife control and tourism, and these are fields in which we can profitably learn from you. We hope that the diplomatic representation between our two countries will also be strengthened.
Coming together for Africa's food systems, from heads of state to government leaders, renowned chefs, researchers, captains of industry, students, young farmers, their focus is one: Africa's food systems. Welcome to AGRF 2021, exploring the pathways and actions needed to steer the continent's food systems forward. Join us from 6th to 10th September 2021. The venue, Nairobi, Kenya, virtual hosted by Kenya and AGRF Partners Group. The theme, Pathways to Recovery and Resilient Food Systems. Register now at www.agrf.org. See you there.
月圆风淡吹散沉香，香满青烟上。
Since the day that we met, I've never been able to give her happiness.
General, you know what? You're a traitor for disobeying. Do you think you can actually get out of here alive?
If you don't want her to kill herself, release me now. You see.
Back, we take a look at today's business news. My name is Carol Jenger. Independent power producers want the government to lengthen power purchase contracts in order to reduce capacity charges and ultimately lower the cost of electricity. The electricity producers told the National Assembly Energy Committee that the duration of power purchase agreement of 20 years, as is the case currently, means they have a shorter period to recoup their investments, hence the high cost of electricity. Benson Rioba reports.
Electricity in Kenya is said to be high, and among factors fueling the rising bills is the high cost of production. This is mainly blamed on expensive contracts between independent power producers and Kenya Power, as well as low electricity demand in the country. In a session with independent power producers, legislators said electricity generators make more money from capacity charges than the actual power sold to Kenya Power.
80% of what you have been paid is capacity charge, and that is for energy that was never supplied. It was only for the capacity for you to generate. And you know, it is passed over to the consumer.
Legislators now want the utility firm to revise the contracts by basing payments on actual electricity consumed to help lower the overall cost of electricity in the country. But the suggestion was immediately opposed by the independent power producers, who said capacity charges are meant to cover operational costs since they were assigned the amount of work to deliver in the contracts.
I have a premises that I have leased to someone. He pays me rent. If he keeps the building locked and does not start his business for 2 months, he'll still pay me rent, whether he has used it or not.
Capacity charges are being paid is just because it's a fixed asset, fixed cost, because of the machinery we bought.
The electricity generators are pushing for longer power purchase contracts to lengthen the duration to recover their investments and ultimately lower the electricity charges.
If you renegotiate, then the best thing to do is to extend the period of the PPA so that within the same particular period, the capacity charge can come down.
They also believe the government should review some levies to reduce the cost of electricity.
Out of the 100 shillings that we pay for steamer, you only get value for the steamer of only 55 shillings. The others is taxes.
Benson Rioba reporting for Prime Edition.
The county government of Nairobi, in collaboration with the private sector and the United Nations, have rolled out a pilot program that will see the use of digital billboards set up along key roads to bring real-time air pollution data and control traffic. The project, dubbed Nairobi Air Quality Awareness Demonstration, is expected to leverage on the digital platforms and expansive network infrastructure to support the air quality monitoring project to expand across more urban areas in Kenya. Digital billboards in Nairobi will soon begin to live stream real-time air pollution details in an effort to increase air quality awareness among the city's 4.7 million inhabitants. The project, dubbed Nairobi Air Quality Awareness Demonstration, is expected to accelerate efforts to change how transport, waste management and other services are managed in cities to ensure air pollution from these activities is significantly reduced, if not eliminated.
We are working with the county governments who will be providing the necessary environment for mounting the sensors, as well as the advertising agencies who are providing the display screens that are spread across the country.
Kenyans will have access to real-time air quality information for some of the most harmful type of air pollution, fine airborne particles known as PM 2.5.
What we are doing is translating this into a color scheme. So if the color is green or the UN blue, it means the air is acceptable. As the pollution grows because of traffic, because of open burning, those concentrations are going to increase, and the colors on those displays will change, going through a scale from green, turn into orange, turn into red, to purple, to brown.
The information will be screened on digital billboards set up along Moi Avenue, University Way, Mbagathi Way and Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to help residents limit their exposure to harmful pollutants.
So anything other than green and blue is not good for you. If it's, for example, red, it means that if you suffer from asthma or you have a heart illness or sensitivities, you will feel it. So you need to take steps to protect yourself.
The billboards will also be used to control traffic in the city to minimize congestion.
Our role in this project is to ensure that we leverage on the technology and the infrastructure that we have across the country to scale up the project to cover the whole country. For the upscaling of this project, we require collaboration and partnerships with different organizations.
Policies and investments supporting cleaner transport, energy-efficient housing, power generation industry and better municipal waste management are expected to reduce key sources of urban outdoor air pollution. Initiative has been rolled out in collaboration with the UN, the private sector, academia, non-governmental and local governmental organizations. Now to what's happening in corporate briefs. The Kenya shilling lost ground against major currencies on Tuesday due to import pressure and low dollar inflows into the country. The Kenya unit closed the trading day at a 9-month low of 110 shillings and 5 cents against the greenback, raising concerns among importers. Here are the details. The central bank has been propping up the shilling through market interventions, offloading the American dollar to ease the pressure. The shilling has been oscillating between 105 and 107 to the dollar in the last year. A weaker shilling is good for exporters while it makes imports more expensive. The Kenyan economy is reeling from COVID-19 pandemic shocks that have upended supply chain and job markets. Elsewhere, the government has been urged to upscale vaccination of tourism and hospitality industry workers against COVID-19 to fast-track the recovery. Tourism is one of the sectors of our economy that has been greatly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Kilifi County Governor Amason Kingi has urged the government to prioritize frontline personnel in the tourism and hospitality industry in its vaccination drive, noting that they are among the most vulnerable to infections.
Nchi sahi iko mbio kujitafutia
mbinu za kuona kwamba watalii bado wanazuru nchi zile, na watalii kuja kwa wingi katika ufuo wa pwani ni kitu kimoja tukifanya. Mtalii atakuja katika ufuo huu wa pwani akijua wazi kwamba it's safe to do so.
Yale mataifa ambayo yanaleta watalii hapa makubwa ya kule Ulaya wanasema tutapeleka watalii wetu mahali ambapo it is a safe zone for COVID, safe zone, the green zone.
Kenya kwa jumla na hasa eneo hili la utalii letu la pwani tumewekwa katika red zone. Red zone kumaanisha kuwa si wengi walikuwa wamepokea hii vaccine na pia tumekuwa na maambukizi yaliyo juu. Japo kupitia huu upeanaji wa vaccine hii ya COVID tumeweza kupunguza haya makali ya corona.
Finally, Oppo has introduced its first 5G smartphone in the Kenyan market, joining other brands such as Nokia, Samsung and iPhone selling 5G handsets. Oppo Kenya head of projects and public relations Muthoni Wachira said the new device targets to improve photography, mobile entertainment and overall consumer experience with super high-speed mobile internet in Kenya. Kenya is the second country in Africa after South Africa to launch trials for 5G technology, heralding new opportunities that the technology provides to individual users and enterprises.
Well, and that roundup brings to a close business news for tonight. But you can find this and more stories on our website, www.kbc.co.ke. My name is Carol Jenger. Have a good night. Sports Update is up next with Richard Munga.
Together is dangerous. He is my father's enemy.
Over my dead body.
Timbi na Timbelio.
Mambo vipi watu wangu? Mama, karibu sana, karibu tena. Kachiri kijulikana kama Bildad kama kawaida. Okay. G-Clef inamaanisha music kabisa. Au sio? Risan Romeo. Wewe ndio mshikaji pale peke yako ama kuna baadhi ya wasanii wengine ndugu yangu?
Mimi nafanya kazi hapo kama msanii pekee.
Pamoja tunafikisha nambari.
Well, good evening. I'm Richard Munga with the day's sports. Now, the national men's volleyball team will take on former champions Egypt in their opening match on Wednesday at the ongoing African Nations Championships in Kigali, Rwanda. Kenya landed a tricky Pool D alongside Egypt, Morocco and Tanzania.
The Gideon Tarus Chargers will take on perennial Miss Egypt in a repeat of 2017 opening fixture, where Kenya lost by 3-1 to the North Africans. Kenya will also face a tricky Morocco and Tanzania in Group D in their quest to advance to the quarterfinals. Head coach Gideon Tarus is adamant that the Kenyan team will put a good fight.
The draw
results imetoka, tuko bull of death, lakini tutafanya vile tutaweza. Najua Waarabu ni timu mbili wako wazuri kwetu, lakini tutafanya vile tutaweza mpaka tuangushe hata moja ndio tukoleba kwenda quarters.
Defending champions Tunisia are drawn in Pool B alongside Nigeria, South Sudan and Ethiopia. The African Nations Championship, which runs until September 16th, has attracted 16 nations. Daniel Mwendwa for Prime Edition Sports.
All to other matters now. 45 young basketball players from Africa are said to benefit from a skills development camp at the Nyayo National Stadium. The camp, organized by FIBA Africa Youth Council, is being conducted by high-profile basketball coaches from the continent and will run kicked off yesterday and will go on up until tomorrow.
The camp draws a total of 45 elite young basketball players, including 12 girls and 4 boys from Kenya and 16 other African countries, among them Malawi, South Africa, Tanzania, Botswana and Cameroon. The rising basketball players are set to learn life skills, combining basketball and education, leadership, character development, health and wellness.
And having these young talents here is just a fantastic experience. And as a group of coaches, we are trying to get them to improve their skills in order to move to the next level.
The program has drawn young players aged below 17 years who also stand a chance of starting their careers at an NBA academy.
This is opportunities, right? And just the value in sport to change the trajectory of kids' lives. To see all the skill coaches and the kids coming out positive and excited about this camp. It's very important in their own journeys, not just from a basketball skill type of investment, but also in the life skills, what they take home, how it builds their character, how it builds community, how it brings unity. I think it's extremely important and much needed on the continent, and that's why it's special.
Empowering youth and do scouting for the NBA Academy, so giving them opportunity. I'm the president of the Olympian Association, and just working on my charity organization, Olumide Youth Foundation. For the last 21 years that I established, I've touched over 40,000 youth live. So basketball, sport management, empowerment, giving helping hands to the underprivileged youth and providing helping hands.
Joe Tomu, the former NBA scout, challenged upcoming players not to be bound by any limits, saying one's mind formed an integral part of his understanding of the game as well.
I've never kind of looked down on a player because he or she is not tall. You can always compensate size with intelligence. You can compensate size with speed. And you can compensate size with toughness. And I always tell players who don't have the height that, listen, as long as you're smart, as long as you have the skills, you can compete against the tall ones.
The camp, which will also be held in Sali, Senegal, and Abidjan in Ivory Coast, is meant to help grow and improve basketball in Africa.
Meanwhile, Football Kenya Federation President Nick Mwenda presided over the opening ceremony of a 4-month-long CAF B license course at the Kenya Institute of Special Education, KISE. Mwenda reiterated the Federation's commitment to coaching education, noting that it is the only way Kenya can nurture talented footballers. The course brought together 25 coaches who hold CAF C licenses, among them Equity head coach John Baraza, Tuskers assistant George Minor, Bidco United's Anthony Akulia, Sofapaka team manager Hilary Echesa, and former Harambee Starlets international Doreen Nabwire.
Every week, literally every week of 54 weeks across a year, we have a coaching training going on somewhere in the country, in a county somewhere. This is unprecedented. This has never been done. This is the job that I promised to do. Pass on the knowledge to as many people, certify them, let them go to the most low level of places and train the kids, and you will begin to see these kids coming through.
It is a matter of trying to improve football in Kenya, first of all, as a whole, and wherever we are, because I believe that for him as a president, his success is to build coaches who can come and educate other youngsters who are coming around. And for me, being in the class, it is something which I want to learn more, because it's not just about football playing, but again, you need to be given in knowledge which you can go and transform to the other coaches who are around here in Kenya.
Oh, that's it for sports, but just an update. World Cup qualifiers, that is for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. The qualifiers continue today, and Portugal has already won 3-0 against Azerbaijan. Bernardo Silva, Andre Silva, and Liverpool's Diogo Jota, of course, scoring the 3 goals. And in other matches starting in a few minutes, some have kicked off in the last 4 minutes. Russia is taking on Malta, Denmark versus Israel, Netherlands versus Turkey, Ireland versus Serbia, and Croatia versus Slovenia. We'll be bringing you all the highlights in our subsequent bulletins, so stay tuned. Oh, that's it for me. I'm Richard Munga. Do have a good night. Well, don't go too far. Back to Tom Mboya and Purity Museo. Good night.
Thank you so much to Richard Munga for the sports update, and to you for watching at Kibiri on Twitter. You're saying that you're concerned about the hotels now spreading COVID-19. Okay, Alex, you're saying that the Minister of Health should consider also sending more doses to counties, because you are saying that you've been trying to get one for the past 2 weeks without any success. All right. And then we also have Anne Wangui, who is tuned in from Muranga. Thank you for watching. We have someone else here saying that young people should also be given a priority on the jab, so that we all get to be vaccinated. Thank you so much to Wanda Wesonga, who is also watching Prime Edition.
Of course, those are follow-ups from that insightful interview that you had a short while ago. Well, very well, thank you. And on behalf of the dedicated Prime Edition team who are handling the back-end logistics, I want to thank you so much for watching. My name is Tom Mboya. Until next week, Monday, Tuesday, good night.
My name is Purity Museo. Thank you so much for watching. Susan Thuku has been our sign language interpreter. Take care and God bless.
Bye-bye.
Vera Beauty College.
Vera